Welcome to Nice Ashes. I'm Nate.
And I'm Mike.
And
What are we smoking today?
fresh off the heels of the absolute worst cigar Mike and I have ever had the misfortune of smoking, which is
It was
saying
worse
something.
than a gas station cigar. It was horrible.
Yes. We are smoking instead, or hopefully one that is better, the Punch Clasico. It's a similar shape as the Blood Red Doom, and but a little girthier, I think.
Oh, yes. Much girthier. Much girthier. This is almost as big around as my thumb.
And I was able to get this one lit without gagging and wishing I were dead. So that's a plus.
I'm going to assume that this is going to be a decent cigar.
You know what? I'm 5 puffs in, and I think it's great. It could be because of how bad the last one was, but I think the flavor is really nice. It's a very pleasant. I wouldn't say sweet, really, but kind of a I don't know, kind of like a semi-sweet maybe. There's a little bit sweeter tones to it. Very smooth, very nice draw. And this is just initial thoughts.
Yeah, the first couple puffs are good. I straight cut this one as well because of how narrow the end was.
Yes, not as narrow as the Blood Red Moon, but it was still narrow, so it would have been, I think, a tough crosscut.
Right.
But I will say the airflow through it is great. So you probably could have gotten away with it.
I think so. I want to try out my new cutter. Now I have new toys and I have to play with them,
And
So,
what brand and everything is your new cutter?
I got this as part of a kit from Pipes and Cigars.
Not
It
a
is
sponsor.
not a sponsor. Ha ha ha. It's right, tubes. It's a paleo cutter that's very similar in design to the Calibri S cut, which is ultimately the one that, if I were to buy one alone, that's what I would have gotten for sure. But it's cut the last two cigars just fine. Last few,
Yeah.
so I can't complain. If one can get one for a reasonable price, we'll see how long it lasts.
Have you gone through cutters?
The cheap ones,
Oh, the cheap ones, yeah.
yeah, the cheap
I was gonna
ones.
say I've had mine for years, and I don't. There's not really. I don't think it's going to slow down any.
Right. Yeah, the
Mine
cheap
just
ones.
says. Even know what brand this is? Let me look. Um, it says stainless steel Cuban crafters. It's the only thing it says on it. Um, but I like it. It was big enough to cut the Asylum 13 that we smoked, and it's got the little
Yes.
torpedo hole, um, which I quite like. So
Yeah. Well, you got to remember too that I wore out a lighter with my Calibri. So my Calibri has lasted me one full lighter, and it's still going strong.
yep.
So, but
Well, and my Jetline lighter I've had also probably since college, and never replaced anything on it. Just refill it, and it's going.
right. That's why I got that Jetline insert for my Zippo.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, you probably do. We might have talked about it. I have a torch insert for a Zippo lighter that I use as a cigar lighter. And my original torch was a Zippo branded uh, torch, which lasted me not very long, half a year maybe, and then it kind of fizzled out. But the Jetline's been good so far. Had it for a year and a half, something like that. So
Yeah, I like that insert.
yeah, I do too. It's
How does that
nice.
one refill? Does it have the little hole in the bottom? You got to pull it out and
Yep, you just pull the case out, and it's got the hole, and fill it right up.
perfect.
So works pretty good. and it burns the fuel pretty good too until the end.
Yep.
You don't have to bleed out half the bottle of fuel or anything weird like that. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that was it. Zippo had that problem from the get go. It only would burn half the fuel, and then you'd have to drain it and refill it. Just a pain in the butt.
Yeah. There's so many other nicer lighters, I think, on the market, or inserts for Zippos if you like the size and the feel and the flicking of the Zippo.
Right.
I wonder. I used to have just a stainless steel Zippo case. I'll have to see if I still have it, because maybe I'll get a Jetline insert and then I can have two lighters for cigars.
Yeah, I like the Zippo. You can shove it in your pocket and not have to worry about it,
Yeah.
which is nice.
I mean, my
Or throw it in a
Jetline's
bag.
not too bad, but it is a little bulkier. You've seen it.
Yes.
It's kind of a square case, and but then the lighting mechanism, or the button to ignite it, it's a rather large rectangle off to the side. But it does have the mirror in the flip top, so you can look and see for an even light.
Yeah. No, I like it. I do a lot of cigar smoking outside, so it's nice just to be able to shove some crap in your pocket and go.
Yeah.
Yours is very futuristic, which is
Yeah,
nice.
not as futuristic as some other ones I've seen.
No, your in-law, her lighter is pretty cool too.
Yeah, that has
Very
like
cool.
you dial. It almost looks like a lightsaber, but you like dial up the intensity you want, and then that's it's pretty cool.
Yeah, you flick like a flint, and then it lights, and that's it is like a lightsaber. It's pretty cool. I think it's nifty.
I think it's cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd want mine to look just like Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Like I'd want it to actually be modeled after that. I think that would be cool.
Oh, I'd want mine to be modeled after Tiva, whoever the new Black Lady Inquisitor is on Kenobi.
Okay.
That fan favorite, her lightsaber, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. I was gonna say maybe like Ahsoka, but I think hers are a little curved, so it wouldn't really stand.
Right, and she's got two of them, so
I'd be okay with two.
well, yeah. Would you have to cross them to be able to light it? Otherwise, it wouldn't work.
I thought you didn't cross the streams, but I'm not sure. Too much multiverse stuff, I think, going on these days.
Yeah. The only thing more ridiculous than this is my opinion. The only thing more ridiculous than Disney Star Wars is the people who get very upset over Disney Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just don't watch it. If
I,
it's
you know
shit,
what? I was
just don't watch it.
I was very upset after the first sequel movie, and then got progressively more upset with the second one, because I was still hoping that they'd make something good, and then I was over it, because there's like the stages of grief, like you're upset, acceptance, and so I moved to the acceptance in between the second movie and the last I'm Rey Skywalker movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just acceptance, and I knew I was going in. I went with a buddy because he really wanted to see it, and I knew going in it was just going to be absolute and utter trash. And then they were riding camels on the outside of a Star Destroyer somehow, and I was like, you do you, Disney, like whatever, doesn't matter to me. I know when I'm stopping the movies series, for me it's Return of the Jedi is the last Star Wars movie in my mind. But I will say Rogue One was great.
I don't think I've seen that one. I stopped watching the movies after the third trilogy. I sat down and forced myself to watch it over a weekend.
Yep. I had to watch the last one twice because Sarah didn't believe me on how bad it was, and she goes, well, I kind of want to watch it. And I said, well, you get me a shit ton of booze, and I will watch it with you.
Mm-hmm.
And even she, when they revealed decrepit Palpatine, at the end, and it's like that fucker's still alive, and they brought him back, and they couldn't think of one like original thing in this entire trilogy. And she's not a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, other than she watches it with me. She's watched Rebels and Clone Wars, but
sure,
those are good stories.
She missed. Star Wars missed a huge opportunity to bring out Darth Jar Jar. If they would have brought out Darth Jar Jar, I would have forgiven everything.
Yeah. They had a lot of opportunities to do a lot of good things, and now all it's been is, since that trilogy has now ended, is there's all of these fan theories that are now defending Disney, right? Well, the one that I saw was, Palpatine's back because he can actually like transfer his consciousness to another being, and that's how like Darth Plagueis, like all of those other ones, like, so they're like, was it really like Palpatine in the prequels, or was it really like Darth Plagueis who transferred his and it's like, okay, now you guys are really coming up with just some absolute bullshit to defend this billion-trillion-dollar company that's just pumping out crap. Like it's one thing to have a fan theory to say, Jar Jar is a Sith Lord. But it's another thing to then try and overwrite other movies that have been well established, to say it wasn't really Palpatine in the prequel trilogy. That was, Darth Plagueis, and it wasn't really Palpatine in Return of the Jedi. That was also Darth Plagueis somehow from eons and eons ago. And, and the new trilogy, or the sequel trilogy, did this kind of like Force meditation long distance calling with 10-10-2-20, or something, do you remember that commercial from like the 90s? It's like, hey, dial 10-10-2-20, and every minute is like $1 or something.
Yes. It's similar to 1-800-COLLECT.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, but you're inventing that, and then you're inventing Force healing. So you're telling me Luke could have force healed Vader when he was dragging him out of the thing, or that like Palpatine could have force healed Vader and had him regrow limbs, and he wouldn't need the suit, and then maybe he wouldn't be such a bitter person, or what? You could have force healed Padme. So I don't know. It's interesting when people take an established franchise and introduce completely new and bullshit things that don't make sense. I mean, at one point in that last movie you saw, they were force passing lightsabers through the void or something.
It's,
and people get upset about the Eagles in Lord of the Rings, but my God, they're just pulling lightsabers out of thin air from across the galaxy.
I don't understand the Eagles in Lord of the Rings. That's a separate issue, but I don't understand why people get so upset. The Eagles are not fucking pets, right? The Eagles in Lord of the Rings are like their own little kingdom, right? So their internal
they have their own rules and laws, and
their internal politics would affect what they're doing.
They saw Ukraine going against Russia, and they thought, "My God, we can't fly in now." And then they got to their breaking point and said, "Now we fly."
Right.
They're
the U.S. in every major world war.
Yeah.
Right. Like the real world wars, as they call them.
Yeah.
Like the U.S. just was like a fucking arms dealer. Yeah. Our internal politics at that time meant that we were arms dealers until the war was coming to the tipping point, and then. Yeah, this is not that difficult to figure out, guys. I just don't get it.
Let's just calm down. You're supposed to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have taken. You know what? They could have. You know what? Gandalf could have called on his wizard phone and said, "Yo, Eagles, my homie Frodo needs to drop this thing into the lava." Eagle be like, "Cool, I owe you one, Gandhi, because you saved my life from falling out of my nest or something." Pick him up. Go. You've got a 20-minute movie. You got a 20-minute movie. Like, you're complaining about something that took 3 movies away from you that were amazing and excellent. And,
right.
It's
and
like,
plus the books, which are incredible.
Yes.
Of course.
So, let's calm down on the Eagles and go back to dissing on Disney.
Well, I'm sure that, Amazon will be greenlighting the internal politics of the Eagle Empire in Little Rings of Power.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to watch. FYI,
the sequel.
I am preemptively not watching it.
Yeah. I've, I've got to watch, Obi-Wan, and then I guess I have to watch Book of Boba Fett before the new Mandalorian season drops.
Yes.
And I've heard some things about Obi-Wan, and you and I have talked about Obi-Wan, and it could be the bait and switch thing. I mean, you've watched Obi-Wan, so you would know, but
I will not spoil it for you, but I will say that we are in episode 3 or 4. I can't remember. It all kind of blurs together. And I started booing at the screen in the living room or whatever, boo Disney Star Wars, boo Disney Star Wars, boo.
Okay.
Every time something happened I didn't like.
So this is my thoughts.
The stink eye.
Yeah. I wasn't really super excited about Book of Boba Fett. Like they teased it at the end of the last season of Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, I'm not really interested. I don't care. It's more Tatooine stuff. And then Obi-Wan was announced, and I know Ahsoka's coming. But I gotta say, I'm most excited just to see Ian and Christopher Hayden. And I feel if I can see any more of them, it's probably okay. It's probably a win.
All right. You need to lower your expectations because
I mean, I don't have.
We're on episode 4. I think we're on episode 4.
Yeah.
Sarah has no desire to see episode 5 at all.
What about you?
And I had no desire to see episode 3.
Oh, okay.
That's what I mean. I started booing the screen.
But I think it's just a mini series. So there's only 8. There's not going to be a second season.
I think there's 6 episodes. Or something like that.
I thought like IMDb said there's going to be like 8, but I'm not sure. But it's a limited run. It's only so many episodes. They're not coming back for a second season. They're not going to pay Ian McGregor and Christopher Hayden more to come back. I think what they're going to use it for is to be use it as a launching pad for a spin-off, so you can get more of that female Inquisitor. Just from what I've seen,
who was a terrible
online.
character. Just awful. The actress is fine, but the character is a petulant child.
Yeah.
Definitely not somebody you'd want on your team. You know what I mean?
You mean it's Kylo Ren?
Yeah, it is like that. Yeah, like a petulant child. Not a very impressive villain, I can tell you that.
Yep. So they Disney came out, and you need to watch this one. But the first one they came out with was Rogue One, and that was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. Really good. So it kind of set really high expectations for what I hoped and thought Disney was going to do with the franchise and the rights to the franchise. And then I don't remember if Solo was the next one they came out with, but that one was pretty terrible. It was watchable for sure. But Mike, did you see Solo? The Star Wars story one?
No.
Okay.
No,
it's like young Han Solo and young Chewbacca. Or younger Chewbacca.
I don't need to see that.
I don't remember how old he is.
I don't need
but that's
to see
the whole
that.
point, is like you can watch the movie and like they show him doing the Kessel Run, and they show him doing all the stuff that he, kind of bragged about in the original trilogy. But that was Han's character. That was the whole beauty of his character, was you never knew if he was actually telling the truth or if it was some like long con or swindle he was running.
Right.
That
Han
was the point.
First, right?
Yep. And but that was the whole point of the character, is you weren't supposed to know if he was telling the truth all the time. You weren't supposed to know if he was going to change his mind, come in and make the saving shot at the last minute, for Luke to be able to blow up the Death Star. You weren't supposed to know that. That was his whole character. So to do a whole movie explaining that, oh no, actually he is the hero and he did do all these things he said he did. Like that undermines the character in my mind.
I agree.
And that's a lot of, and it's not just Disney. Okay, it's other companies. They do that with Terminator Dark Fate. They come in and they undermine these characters because they don't understand the character. They don't take the time to watch the character in other movies that are established and then carry that character on in a logical progression. It's all money driven, and how can we spin more movies off of this? How can we, not have to hire old actors that could die at any moment and put a new actor in there that's younger that we have to pay less money to?
Right. Well, I don't know. They need to come up with new stories
and that's it too, because there's so much of the Star Wars universe.
Yes,
or any
absolutely.
universe. I mean, if you want to carry on the franchise, yeah, and Rebels did that. It was a completely new cast of characters. Leia showed up once or twice, but it was young Leia.
Ahsoka showed up a handful of times.
Yeah, and Vader was there. And then there was one episode with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul. And Darth Maul was kind of there. But the main protagonists, they were all people that nobody had ever heard of because they invented them for the show. And it was their story and their planets and their livelihoods and families. And it wasn't, hey, did you hear about the Skywalker dude? It wasn't that. So, come up with original things. It's a whole entire galaxy, universe, whatever. It's everything. You have unlimited potential.
But that would create original thought, right? It's kind of like Star Trek.
Which Hollywood is against.
Yes. It's exactly like Star Trek. All they're doing is rehashing old shows.
Yeah.
Old characters. Yep. Like, we do not need a show about fucking Captain Pike. Okay? We don't need it. We don't need it. We've been there, we've done that. Let's do, obviously, the actor that played Nog is dead, but let's do Captain Nog.
Yep.
Let's do Jake Sisko in the future. Let's move forward in this storyline, right?
Yeah.
Let's get out of the past and get into the future. Maybe bring in a couple legacy characters as
but they ran
characters.
into that because so I've never seen it, but the Star Trek Discovery, I heard there's a whole slew of stuff, but wasn't that in the future or was that in the past? I don't remember.
No, that is alternative universe.
Universe. Okay, so
TOS timeline.
I hated when they did the reboots movies.
Oh yeah,
with Kirk.
Jar Jar Abrams.
Yeah, because one, we already have all those shows and movies with those characters, and I don't need a reimagining of those characters. By and large, the first movie was fine, okay? As a one-off. But they made like two more. And what really kind of drove me away from that was when the second one came out, or the trailer for the second one came out, and everybody goes, well, that's Wrath of Khan. And then J.J. Abrams came out, and they issued like this huge like press release, and he's like, it's not Wrath of Khan. And then you watched it in the theater because he suckered you into going because he promised you it wasn't Wrath of Khan, and you went there, and it was Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, and it was White Khan. It wasn't even like Brown Man Khan. Like, he's supposed to be from that like subcontinent, Indian subcontinent somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, you can't find a single actor who would at least represent physically what Khan would look like. Even I don't want to get too, like I say, I don't want to, like, it's like ridiculous to get upset about it, but at the same time, it's like, come on, man. Ricardo Montalban's a legend. You're shitting on this like legacy character by having some effeminate British guy play like this badass character. Yeah, he's supposed to be a Superman, literally.
Yeah, because he was genetically altered.
He's genetically enhanced,
physically and mentally.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor, and there's a lot of things that I like him in, but I don't think it was the right casting call for Khan.
No. Well, they should, like I say, move forward. Star Trek Discovery is, the main character is a retconned alternative universe Spock's adopted sister, who's a black woman, right? So it is like TOS timeline, but an alternate universe.
Well, and Voyager had a black Vulcan. And they were.
I'm not against Black Vulcan. She's not a Vulcan. She's a human.
Oh, okay, human.
Yeah,
Well,
she's not a
whatever. I
Vulcan.
mean,
She's
but
a human.
I'm trying to say like Voyager. They went forward in time, or they were running kind of concurrent, or just towards the tail end of Next Generation.
They
Right,
were
it
the
was a
same timeline.
similar timeline, but they did something new, a new crew, and they sent him out, and there were certainly some episodes that were absolute horse crap in Voyager, but there were some really great episodes as well, and kind of gave us the first featured in a series female captain. You had a Black Vulcan. You had I don't remember if he was actually like a Native American, but he was like a stand-in kind
was
of.
a Native American. Yep.
Yep. And so you really had a diverse cast, and you had, new storylines that kind of really, though, piggybacked hard on the Borg thing. And I wish, because they sent them way out into deep space, and it was like, you could have any alien you want. You don't need to piggyback off the Borg. But they did.
They had the Kazon for the first 2 seasons, and they were incredibly unpopular. The Kazons were just not popular with the fan base because they're ridiculous, unfeasible alien species to focus on for multiple episodes, And then they had some good ones, though. I mean, they had good aliens and stuff, and it was better than anything that they're producing now, for sure.
Oh, yeah. And then they came out with Enterprise, and they went way back before they even had warp drive, basically.
Right. I like that concept, too, by the way. I thought it was a good show.
It was,
personally.
what? I didn't dislike it. I'll tell you, watching it was very frustrating sometimes because they had, armor plating instead of shields. And so it was kind of frustrating to go back in time and be like, we're just watching these people struggle for no reason.
I thought it was an interesting thought experiment as far as...
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought experiment. I think if it would have been like a standalone movie or a few seasons shorter, it would have been better, just tighten it up. And how they did the series finale was an absolute slap in the face to every single actor on that show, because they made the series finale an episode of Next Generation.
Sure.
Because they had Riker and Troy going through the holodeck explaining this last thing, and and I don't remember, maybe they got canceled and they're like, we got to do something, but like, let the actors have their own finale. Like, we understand they're part of a bigger Star Trek universe, but let those actors have their own finale and not be overshadowed by Riker and Troy.
Right.
That's my thought.
No, I agree. Like you say, I am a big Star Trek fan. I'm so disappointed they didn't just continue the story. Like I said,
I got so mad at Picard.
I watched the first episode of the first season, and I was like, man, I just don't think this is going to be for me. I just don't think this is going to be for me.
Yeah. My buddy, he goes, you got to watch it. I'm watching it with my dad. You got to watch it so we can talk about it. And after every episode, I'm like, man, I can't. He goes, oh, come on. Finish the season at least. And I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can. But I forced myself, and I watched, everything that's out, unless they have a new one out now, but a new season. But I was like, dude, I can't do it. And he goes, I'm probably going to watch the new season when it comes out. And I said, I will not. I don't care. I can't do it anymore.
How do you like the cigar, by the way? I'm over halfway done. I'm maybe halfway point.
All right.
And I like it. It's good.
I like it. It's good. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's good. I don't know that there's anything standoutish about it, but it's good.
No, it's not like crazy, but it's very pleasant. It's very, very pleasant. Nothing offensive. Nothing too crazy good about it either. It's not like blowing my socks off here, but I think it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, I like it. It's a nice, I kind of wish they would have put a spicy wrapper on it, but Otherwise, it's good. It's
That
you know,
has
it's,
a lot to do with our personal preferences.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, I like the spicy wrappers as well.
But no, this one's good. I like it. Um, I wouldn't hesitate to smoke another one.
Definitely better than the last one.
Yeah. Yep.
That Blood Red Moon is going to go down in the books. It's got to be oof. That one was rough. But yeah, Boba Fett, you're gonna like it. It's like I say, it's not really about Boba Fett so much as it is
Yeah.
Mandalorian 2.5, uh, which is fine. It shouldn't have been called Boba Fett, and they shouldn't have presented it as being like about Boba Fett. But it was fine, you know. A lot of characters from Rebels. So Sarah was lost when she watched it because she's never watched Clone Wars or Rebels. So they got a lot of Clone Wars characters that show up, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna give it a watch. We'll watch it before we watch the newest Mandalorian that comes out, and I'll watch Obi-Wan just because I want to see Obi-Wan and Vader.
Right. Well, I mean, the problem that I have with Obi-Wan, and you'll find out, is they crap on certain characters in the episode shows, and it's like crapping on your own characters is just not a good plan when you're trying to create entertainment, right?
Yeah.
So uh, it's just not the way that things should be done, in my opinion. Not that I'm an expert, but that's like
Yeah. What franchise have you not created but purchased, and then decided to carry on? What
right.
do you know
Yeah.
about what Disney's doing?
Yeah, I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I know that I'm not excited for Lord of the Rings, which my nephew I was shooting the breeze with him last Wednesday, and he's never read nor has he watched the Lord of the Rings movies, and it's like, really, dude, you've never? He's like, no, they looked like they were going to be like dweeby or whatever. I'm like, what? He was reading a sword and board type novel, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this is right up your alley.
In
Yeah,
fact, this is the OG.
yeah. This is where it's all at.
Yeah, this is what kind of catapulted fantasy novels, into the mainstream. Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably watch a little of the Rings of Power. I know my brother's going to watch it because he's a huge Tolkien fan. But I gotta say, the little teaser trailer thing they dropped didn't make me overly excited.
No,
But
no, I'm not. Uh, to me, it looks like they're gonna write out Celeborn, which I am not a huge fan of writing out Celeborn. I wanted to see Celeborn's story, which is probably why it pisses me off, or not pisses me off, but why I'm like super not excited about it. Because I did
it's
want to
tough
see
to say
Celeborn.
from a teaser. I mean, who knows?
It is, but Warrior Galadriel tells me that they're just gonna like take all of Celeborn's roles and give it to her, and not put Celeborn in the story at all. Potentially, who knows? And I know they had hobbits, racially diverse hobbits, and that's like a big red flag to me as well,
Yeah,
for
especially
various
when
reasons.
when The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, he kind of wrote that as an alternative take on English history.
Well, it just doesn't make. Let's just. I mean,
And
that's like factual reality. I'm staying within like the
yes,
confines of lore.
well,
The
it's
hobbits
it's
were
a
confined to a very small
homogenous
area.
confined community.
Yes, they are analogous to like the peasantry of England, like a genetically homogenous, small-minded group of fools
That never
who have great
travel except
bravery.
for Bilbo and Frodo, but they never
Right,
travel. They never leave the Shire. Um, and who
who
knows
are
if
highly
they're even.
prejudiced, and I mean, they're just narrow-minded,
Well,
simple
yeah.
folk. That's the whole point.
Yes.
That's like the charm
And
of the
you know what?
hobbits.
And a lot of them didn't like Gandalf. They gave Gandalf, sideways glances and things when he showed up with his fireworks.
Right. Yeah.
So even allowing an outsider in wasn't something every Hobbit was on board with.
Right. And after the end of The Lord of the Rings, Aragorn even further isolated them by law and decree.
Yes.
Purposefully protecting them from outside influences. So, yeah, it's what it is. It's what it is. I'm just not enthused about that.
I think it's hard.
Brings.
To go way back in history and go, yes, we had black hobbits, but they left and went to the Blackshire, and all of the white hobbits stayed here in Whiteshire.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of crazy shit they're going to have. They're going to have, like, Burning Alabama version of Hobbiton. You know what I mean? Like...
Seems like an odd thing that you have to do, like crazy, like storytelling, writing, cartwheels and backflips and contortionism to somehow make a diverse version of Lord of the Rings. Like at that point, it's like if you're going to do all of these crazy writing tricks to try and say, yeah, we had black hobbits back then, but now we don't have any. Just make your own fantasy story with a diverse cast and do your own thing and be 100% creative instead of stealing somebody else's franchise and then writing your own stuff that you want into it.
Right. Just
make your own thing.
Somewhat lazy and just have the Easterlings come in and now they're black.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Why not?
Right? Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just because the Easterlings are technically on the side of Sauron, and they were kind of Middle Eastern in appearance. Whatever.
Well, there are other regions that weren't explored in the books.
That's right.
And there were other regions where they said the people there were of darker skin. So you could literally take any other region that was never touched in any of the Tolkien books, invent your own backstory for them, and create your own culture for them, and have them come in, and it would make sense with everything else. Right. But even some of the Star Trek stuff, they made these new movies and then they were like, oh yeah, it doesn't really fit with anything, does it? And we had old Spock from the original stuff, and then we have new Spock. Alternate timeline. That's our solution. Alternate timeline. We don't have to worry then. We can write anything we want. We can rehash all the old movies that were classics, and then just say that. But they're a little different, so it's not Wrath of Khan, because this time Spock yells Khan, and it wasn't Kirk that yelled Khan, so it's different. See, and It's alternate timeline.
Oh, the first time I watched the new Star Trek movie, I did not quite catch on to the fact that it was alternative timeline right away.
Yeah.
I was watching it and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
It's the laziest writing ever. Yeah. Like a lot of this stuff, you watch this stuff, or they're reviving things and they're bringing things back, and they're even with the original cast members, and they're bringing things back like X-Files and other things. And it's like, this is the laziest writing of all time. You can't possibly be making enough money off of this to justify it, but I guess they are. I guess somebody somewhere is like, hey, I love all this rehashed stuff. I don't want anything new. I want to, but I don't want to see how.
I'm super excited for Dune. I mean, let's break it with all this negative talk. I was very pleased with Dune. I did not like that they gender swapped a few characters, but at the same time, I know that they're not going to do all of the Dune books. So the long-term political consequences of that decision will never be seen on the screen. And I'm okay with that.
Well, I
understand.
I'm almost done with Children of Dune, the book.
Okay.
I've got all the books in the original series, plus the two that Frank's son and other guy wrote to finish out Frank's series. So I'm excited to read them all. And I'm trying to think. Like the biggest one I saw that they gender swapped was Keynes,
Yes.
the planetologist. And so far, even they still mention Keynes every once in a while in Children of Dune, but more in passing. And I can't possibly see how it would matter if Keynes was a man or a woman. Like I don't. It
Later
doesn't.
on, it matters, but not. It's not a huge consequence.
Okay.
But it does eventually matter because of the development of political change that happens over the span of the series, which is over thousands of years, as I'm sure you can already tell. Well, yeah. If you're in Children of Dune,
yeah. About Children of Dune, so it's Paul's twin kids. Spoiler alert. From Dune Messiah.
Yes.
And then I have a feeling that we're going to kind of like, I mean, there's like 8 books or something if you count the Sandworms of Dune and Hunters of Dune. That Frank's
Well, there's
kid
more than that, but because there's like the expanded Dune universe.
He did. But yeah, so his son did they did one for each of the houses, and they did one on the Butlerian.
Well, there's 3 for the Butlerian Jihad. There's 3 books for that, and then there's 3 house books that cover. It's like a prequel.
And then, if I've decided that if I read and finish this kind of like main storyline arc, and like it, then I'll pick up that other stuff that Frank's son and the other guy did.
I'm on House Harkonnen right now.
Okay.
So I've read a few more than just the original series. And so the gender stuff does matter in the larger Dune universe, right? Like the gender politics plays an important role. And that's like I say, they're not going to make the extended Dune universe on screen, so I'm okay with that. And then they kind of race swapped a couple characters too, which is fine. It's not the end of the world by any means. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, and I guess I would
perfectly
say
okay with that.
I would say from my reading of the first 3, or almost the full first 3 now, some of the gender stuff matters. I guess in Fremen culture, the women typically aren't the ones that are roaming around the desert and doing things, right? They're taking care of the sieges and offspring and things like that.
Their political power is centered around the sieges and the maintenance of those, which is the most important part because they're the ones generating all of the wealth.
I'm not trying to minimize that, and I think in Fremen culture they really revere their women.
In Fremen culture, the women are the ones who hold all the money because money is water, and they have all the water rings.
Yes.
So it depends on how you want to look at it.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, like, even with understanding like that Fremen culture and stuff, like for Keynes to be a woman in the movie, I don't think that matters. They're not going to get into all of that stuff.
No, it's not a big deal. Like I said,
they might.
I was very happy with the movies.
Yes, and they might do a little bit of water rings in this second part with Paul and Zendaya. I'm sorry, I can't remember the actual character name.
Shaney.
Yes. So they might do some water ring stuff with that because that was kind of like Paul's only hiccup with Fremen culture in the book. Because he got his still suit on, the right appropriate Fremen way, and he knew pretty much everything. And the water ring thing was kind of like his only hiccup. So they'll probably show that in some form in the second part of the movie. But, I guess for Keynes being a female, and then they didn't, in the first part of the movie, they didn't really find out that Keynes was a Fremen until close to the end of Keynes' life cycle, but
right.
Well, and in the book,
let's be clear, it's not that Paul knew all of the ways of the Fremen. It's that he fell into many of their ways naturally because many of the ways of the oh, come on, now I'm drawing a blank. his house name. They're not the Harkonnens. The other ones.
No, Atreides.
The Atreides. Many of the ways of the Atreides were similar to the ways of the Fremen. So, unlike the Harkonnens.
Yes. So I wasn't overly concerned with any of that stuff. I watched the miniseries first, the Frank Herbert's Dune miniseries, and then I tried to watch the Sting Dune, but I just couldn't do it. I had to stop it. Kind of like that last cigar, the Blood Red Moon. I couldn't get behind the Sting version of Dune.
I've never watched him. I have him at the house, but I haven't watched him. I need to.
But the miniseries is great, and I want to watch. They did a Children of Dune miniseries, which is actually Dune Messiah and Children of Dune combined into one miniseries.
Cool.
And so I want to watch that as well. But I watched the first part of Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 1. And I said, man, I got to read Dune. So then I made that a priority, and I read Dune, and it was very interesting because there was a lot more political backstory in the book than they showed in the movie.
Yes. Plans within plans within plans, right?
Yes. And
that's where the gender politics comes into play. Okay. I realize that's not going to be in the movies. So, yeah.
Well, there's only so much you can put in a movie. And a lot of the stuff that was the plans within plans within plans, and a lot of that political negotiating was, the book can show you inside people's minds. But the movie is not going to sit there and, well, hopefully not, if you're a good filmmaker. You're not going to here's Lady Jessica, and then just have an internal monologue running. Okay, well, I'm looking over at this person, and I think they might be doing this because my Bene Gesserit training says they might be doing this. We don't want that. That's bad filmmaking, to have an internal monologue.
Right.
For not comedy purposes, right?
Right. It depends, unless you're,
Deadpool.
British director
great.
Or something. What the hell is that guy's name? Guy Ritchie. Unless you're Guy Ritchie doing that.
Yes.
Probably not going to work out in your favor.
Not if you're trying to make a serious sci-fi flick. So.
No, and like I say, it was as good as it. I was very excited for it. Having read the Dune books. And think currently reading the extended universe, but
okay.
It's.
I think, in contrast to what Star Trek and Star Wars and some other franchises are doing, if you want to add diversity and you want to be more inclusive, the way they did it in the Dune Part 1 movie is the right way to do it.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't detract from anything. It's not a big deal. These characters aren't always described in the book by skin tone. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, there's spoiler alert. The Fremen are spoiler alert for everybody else. The Fremen are kind of a proxy for Arabs. So it makes sense to have black Fremen in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's millions and millions of them. So
yes,
also,
and there's nothing to say that yeah. Well, you've got and you have space travel. Not that the Fremen were doing that in the first book, but you have space travel. You have Arrakis, and people go there to get spice. So to say that nobody ever took a Fremen spouse or childbearer partner, that would be kind of dumb. So you could have
absolutely
multiple skin tones of Fremen, just because you have the entirety of space that would come and there because that's the only planet with that commodity that everybody needs, and that's why this little backwater desert planet is important, and that's why we meet the Fremen, and that's why we, so I think that everything in that and what they did with this version, it all makes sense and it's fine. It doesn't break any of the hard and fast Dune rules, or hey, we've got a black hobbit suddenly. You can have black Fremen, you can have white Fremen, you can have tan Fremen, you can have all of this stuff. And I think the other spoiler alert is which my buddy got really upset. He's like, I just wish they wouldn't have called that one guy Idaho, because that's like, it just popped me way out of it. I'm like, well, dude, they're all from Earth. Like all of these people are all from Earth. Like, so, his family probably originated in Idaho, and that's what their name they took on. I mean, like, you got last name like Cooper. What did they do? They made barrels. They were Coopers. That's what they did. Yeah.
Most British people have names that describe their job
Smith.
and
what
or
did
location.
Smith do? Yeah, what did Smith do? I don't know. Take a wild guess.
Yes. Most, like I say, every British name, because it's English, it's just a descriptor of what they did and their location, which is a lot of it too. So I think, I think just to kind of like bring it back, Dune, the newest Dune, did that the right way. You want to be a little more inclusive. You've got all of space, all of humanity, basically. You've got people that, modified themselves certain ways. They can only live in, tanks of water or something like that, but they're still started out as human, kind of. And, we're generations and generations beyond leaving Earth. Well, people criticize Frank Herbert for not having computers because they consider it a cop-out. Because, of course, you make a universe with no computers, and now you're no longer beholden to current technologies. So it's an aid in many ways.
But that was the whole point of the Butlerian Jihad.
Right.
Was the AI became sentient or something and stuff. And so they only kind of hint at it, in the first 3 books. I think in the second book they talk a little bit more about it because spoiler alert again, I guess, they bring back Duncan Idaho from the dead. But it's this crazy crazy kind of like group of people, and they reanimate dead flesh, and they give them their own crazy like robotic eyes. But it's like just enough to not fall prey to the universal rule that we don't have computers. But that's why they have mentats. They're the human computers. So they've trained humans to behave like computers. And I think it's very, very interesting. And I don't think it's a cop-out at all. I think it's and actually, that's why I think his son wrote those 3 books about that jihad, because it probably, gives a lot more meat to that storyline. So
it does.
I think it's fascinating. And I would say kudos to Frank.
Right, and that's where the only reason why I say Leah Kynes' gender swap makes a problem is that in the Dune universe, the Bene Gesserits are like the breeders of this superhuman program.
Yes.
And women hold the keys to that. So women have a certain power that the men don't have. And the women are largely not involved with the politics of planetary bullshit because all of the upper class women are involved with the breeding program.
Yeah, well, they don't need to be because they have the true power, basically.
They have the power, like the real power.
Yeah,
because all these men have to take Bene Gesserit wives. More.
Yes.
So, yeah, they're the ones that are controlling who's in charge. They're not in charge, but they're controlling who is in charge. So
when they can use the voice, so they can kind of control.
They can manipulate, yes. So I'm near the end of this cigar, by the way.
Yeah, me too. I like it.
It's good. Yeah, very pleasant smoke. I don't think that it's gonna knock anybody's socks off necessarily, but it's very pleasant.
No, yeah, it's not going on my short list of, favorite smokes, but it's a solid cigar.
It tastes like more, I can tell you that.
Yeah, that it does.
So, there we go.
Yeah, I like the way they did the voice in the new Dune movie.
I agree. Yeah, it wasn't too cheesy.
No, and, I don't... It's and the way they do the voice in the book, the way Frank writes it, I think is very, very subtle.
Yes.
More subtle than they did it in the movie. But if they did it more subtle in the movie, you as the viewer wouldn't know when they were doing it, because in the book it's kind of like, Lady Jessica, she's like, I pitched my voice to highlight this feeling and that feeling, and then she speaks, so you as the reader know because he gave you that clue, but he never really kind of explained how it sounds. So I like the way they did it in the movie, because it gives you that this is something that the person can't fight against or can't rebel against.
Right.
So I thought that was well done. I'm
sure that they'll explore the witches of the Bene Gesserit more.
Oh, they'll have to in part 2, yeah.
And that's like one of the things did they call them witches at any point in time?
Oh yeah, they've been calling them witches, I think, even in the first book.
No, I'm talking about in the in the
movie.
Here. In the movie.
I'm not sure if they did in the movie. I know in the book, like whenever somebody gets mad at a Bene Gesserit, they're like, "You Bene Gesserit witch." So,
oh yeah, well, and in the Dune universe, everybody is consciously aware that these women are like secretly
they've got special powers.
Show. Yeah, they're running the show,
powers,
and there's nothing they can do about it because they're because of the way that their political system works. They have to.
Yeah, and you know what? They're almost like classified. I think they're classified as like a religion in the Dune universe, and
yes, they are.
They have kind of those special protections where nobody can really go in and kind of tell them what to do. They just get to do what they want to do.
Right.
Because they're the ones. I think they're the ones that have the truth sayers too, right? Like they're the Bene Gesserit truth sayers, so they kind of control the courts, because if you're in power and you want the truth out of somebody, you bring in a truth sayer, and guess what? That's a Bene Gesserit. So.
Yeah. Well, like I say, every major political organization is ran by a man, but that man's wife and all that man's daughters are part of the Bene Gesserit order.
Yeah,
everyone.
And we didn't see, well, in the movie anyway, and I don't think in the book. Well, actually, in the book, Baron Harkonnen, he was like banging little boys and stuff. Like he brought in like a little boy that looked like Paul in the book, and that was like gave me the heebie-jeebies.
He was a child molester. Yes.
So I don't know that he was ever married to a Bene Gesserit. And
no,
I don't
he
think
was never married to a
he
Bene
didn't have
Gesserit.
He didn't have any offspring, but he's got like a nephew or something.
He did, in fact, have offspring.
Okay.
Yes. Just spoiler alert to you, I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's fine. Like, there's so many Dune books that by the time I get to the Harkonnen family book, I will have forgotten. So.
Yes, yeah, he did in fact have offspring, but the Bene Gesserit women can also decide whether they have boys or girls.
Okay.
Internally, they have control over their bodies to the point in the books where they can have boys or girls, or not get pregnant or get pregnant.
And they even said that, they hinted at it in the Dune movie. And in the first Dune book, they did too, where because Lady Jessica went against the Bene Gesserit edict to not have a boy.
Yes. Well, she was a heretic, so to speak.
Yes.
So,
I think that's interesting. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. Because I think, after the first Dune book, and maybe even after, Dune Messiah, it gets really into, I think, from what I've kind of heard, and I haven't tried to read too much about like the Dune series other than should I get these last two that Frank's son and partner wrote to finish up his storyline.
Sure.
But that they kind of get into kind of church versus state, a lot of politics and religion. And I think that'll be really interesting. Like I'm really liking Children of Dune, and I've got, I don't know how much left. I've got to be 75% done, or more with the books. So I've been liking it so far.
Right. Yeah, it's like you say, I enjoy it, but it's not for everybody, just like anything else.
Not for everybody, yeah. But that's what it comes down to, and you even said it. Like if Star Wars makes you angry, don't watch any new Star Wars. Watch the Star Wars you like. You don't have to watch everything ever created about Star Wars. And the same with Star Trek, and same with Terminator. I'll watch Terminator and Terminator 2, and then that's where I stop. That's all the Terminators I need to see.
Right. It does make me disappointed that I'm not watching Star Trek anymore, because it's just not the same anymore. But
Yeah.
life moves on, right? I
Life
wasn't
moves
reading
on,
Dune when I
and
was watching Star Trek, and now I'm reading Dune, and
yeah,
I'm enjoying the extended Dune universe, and that's good. And there's
yeah. I mean,
more books than
there's
I can ever read in a lifetime, and there's definitely
yep,
more TV than anybody could ever watch, and it's just the way things
yep.
are.
Well, and franchises that you enjoy, like you loaned me that Ahsoka book, and that was great.
Yep.
Franchises you enjoy. There's still a ton of Star Wars books out there, even though Disney made them not canon, despite what George Lucas said. But you know what? You don't need Disney to tell you that you can or can't enjoy a Star Wars book that somebody else wrote.
Right. It's all made up nonsense anyway. So
yeah. And I really enjoy Alien and Aliens. Alien 3 is not good, and Alien 4 is absolute trash, and whatever Ridley Scott's doing with Prometheus and Alien Covenant is absolute trash. But my buddy said, hey, you got to read this Alien series written by this dude and his daughter. And I read it, and you know what? They continued on Newt and Hicks, but they had to call them something different because they didn't have the copyright to use those names. And all you had to do in your brain was say, oh, yeah, this is Hicks, this is Newt. And it's a phenomenal trilogy, continuing their story. And it has almost nothing to do with Ripley. But it's great. And there's a whole bunch of stuff like that out there for any franchise you could ever possibly want. And you don't have to like the stuff that's officially recognized. You don't have to say, well, I can't read that because Ridley Scott said that that's not really how it goes.
Right.
You get to
the
you
latest
get to decide.
Fantastic Beasts movie. Haven't watched it, and I'm not going to. And we are of the age to where I loved Harry Potter growing up. I read all the books. I was one of those people that bought them early and all that crap. And, I didn't like all the movies. But
so my first exposure to Harry Potter was in college, and my girlfriend at the time was huge into it, and she made me watch like the first 2 Harry Potter movies, and I said these are absolute trash, and I refuse. And then somebody said, well, have you read the books? And I said no, because the movies are so bad. And they're like, well, read the books. And then in college I read all the books, and I loved it, except for the last chapter of the last book, because I don't want Harry Potter to be like an accountant or whatever he was, right? Like the greatest wizard who ever lived of all time is an accountant or something. Like, no, that's dumb. And then Sarah and I, we just watched the movies because they did that reunion special. We watched that, and they were telling all these funny stories. And so we were like, hey, we should just watch the movies again. And I was like, yeah, I've only seen like the first 2. And we watched them, and actually I liked all of them. They were all pretty good. And the way they did the ending of the last movie was so much better than how J.K. Rowling ended her last book, because it was just Ron, Harry, and no, not Ron and Harry. No, yeah, Harry, Ron, and Hermione bringing their kids to the station, and you never knew what they actually did for a profession, and you didn't know that they all like started to lead sad and depressing lives like the rest of us. But
well, I think Harry was basically a mid-level bureaucrat at the Auror's office, which
yeah, whatever. But I mean, it's like he's the greatest wizard ever of all time, is what the books made him out to be until the last chapter, and then it's like now he's just a paper pusher. So I liked how the movie did it, because they didn't go into what they were doing with their lives. It was just they're dropping their kids off. Great, they're continuing the thing. Harry could still be off doing crazy adventures. We don't know.
The mystery. You liked the mystery.
Yes. I don't need to know sometimes. Like the Han Solo movie. I don't need to know what he did. I like not knowing.
Absolutely. That's part of the character, too. He's supposed to be kind of like the man with no name when he shows up.
Yes.
And
very much the rogue and kind of anti-hero.
Right. And Han Solo did shoot first, just so everybody knows.
So everyone's clear, and there was no CGI, comically smaller version of Jabba the Hutt wiggling around the hangar bay.
No. No, there was not. Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, I think an interesting episode. Hopefully you, the listener, also thinks so. I like that we talked about
nerdy bullshit.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Some of the topics and some of the things we've talked about have been pretty heavy hitting and divisive. So I think it's good to talk about something that has absolutely no controversy around it, like Star Wars and Star Trek and fan favorite franchises. That's all stuff we can all agree on, I think.
Right. I've heard, what the hell was it? Star Wars fan base is the most toxic fan base on the internet or some bullshit like that. Like, really?
Yeah, that's just something Disney says when people don't like that they're lazy about their stories.
Yeah. It's like, obviously, these people are not old enough to have been to the original Stormfront. For those who don't know, you don't want to know. But, yeah. We will not be saying the words that are related to the original Stormfront. But
you can Google it.
You can Google it. It is, I'm sure they have it on the Wayback Machine. Yes. So, anyways, the cigar was good. I liked the cigar.
Yeah,
it was just
I
fine.
like this one as well. Nothing overly pro or con about it. It was tasty. Not tasty in a super distinct way where I would, associate with anything. But very, very good. And I would definitely smoke another one.
Yeah, I would. If somebody hands you one, I would definitely smoke it. And if you're looking for something to, sit down and shoot the breeze and enjoy your smoke, it's a good choice.
Yes, indeed. Well, as always, thanks for listening.
Have a happy 4th of July in the past.
Yes. Think back to 2 weeks ago.
Hopefully your heartbreak and whatever nasty shit you did, you'll get over.
Yes. And hopefully you drank some Natter Days.
Yes, something like that.
All right. We'll catch you next episode.
Have a good day.